Testing, testing, testing. And if you hit refresh, you probably will see me. So it should be streaming. And it's up and running, so if we want to just leave it like that, you will have to edit. So you know how to edit that? So should we just leave it alone because it goes on at one, right? Or I can stop it and just...
Testing. Can you hear me? Is it working on the microphone?
Yeah. Which mic are you using, lapel?
No, the square one?
Did you turn it on?
Yes, I did. I did.
I actually prefer these ones.
I know, but they create some problems.
Did they?
Yeah.
Is it the local light is on? Let me see. Testing, 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 testing.
Testing.
There you go.
There's a delay. Okay. Hello. Testing.
Well, it's recorded, so probably.
I just don't know if that's
So everything is being recorded visually, and I will go put on channel 733.
Oh, I have no idea how to do that.
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good. I'll be right back.
All right. Testing. Testing. Come on in. You can come in.
This is not where the meeting is.
Yes, it is. Chat with Joe?
I'm sorry, I'm lost.
Chat with Joe?
Yes.
This is where the meeting is. Yes, here's the first one here.
Good.
All right.
There's no one here?
It doesn't start till 1. No, and it's
Okay.
12.
I mean,
That's okay.
I don't know. Yeah, well, maybe not, but
I moved the altar out of the way. Do we need to move that or not?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay. That is on, yes. Do you need another,
I'll get that little black one. Oh, do you know what the code is for the phone to call in? Good. Hello. Hi. Hello. How are you? Good. All right. Whoop. All right. Thanks. Oh, good. Where's? No, that little black music stand. Here it is. I found it. Thanks, Steve. All right. Excuse me. Hi, Ellen. Steve, you notice the delay? You notice the delay? So the people in the room are hearing me, but there's like a 15-second. Is that how it is? Okay. I think David, yeah.
okay,
Yep.
so here is the
Okay.
call-in number.
So are they going to be hearing that the whole time? That's brutal. Steve, every time I talk, am I going to be hearing the delay and they're going to be hearing the delay? That's weird, because that's never happened. No.
Do you want the other mic back on?
Maybe it is this mic.
I don't know.
All right, let's try the other mic. Let's try.
What mic did you use before? Your
The headset.
back in the back here, would you like your lapel?
Here we go again. The sound system, getting the repeat 15 seconds later.
Okay.
Testing 1 2. Hello.
Hello.
Testing 1 2. There was a delay on this?
Yeah, it was like coming through. Let's wait a minute, maybe you'll hear it.
I just added this.
I think you got it. Because I'm not hearing the backup.
Testing.
It's doing a delay, but then the microphone up at the podium, but you,
Hey, that's weird. I've never had that happen before.
Thank you.
Well,
Hi, Sam. Hi, Sam.
look,
There, I think you got it.
let's try it and see. If we have an issue, we got the other we got the other handhelds back there too.
It keeps going off unless I'm doing something wrong.
Should I put another mic up there for other folks?
Yes.
What's this charged up?
Yeah, that's charged up. It's plugged in.
Check. Well, I'd use the Sures then. Use the Sures.
Here. Put this one
I
up
like
there.
these better.
Yeah. Testing 1 2. Test. Is it coming through?
Got 4 channels. Let's shut off some of these microphones here.
Oh, we got all these microphones going on
4
right
channels.
Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's working.
now. Okay. Take
I
that.
haven't checked the batteries.
Which one? I don't know.
Testing 1 2.
On the other side. Yeah, we do. On the other side. behind
Test. Is that one coming through?
Whew. Okay. Testing. Okay. Ah,
Testing 1 2.
yeah, I think that was it.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Want me to put that one up? Hey, Sam. How are you? Okay. Can the folks on the phone hear us okay? Got about 1 more minute. We'll wait another minute here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Can the folks on the phone hear us okay?
I can.
All right. That's one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't bet until it's over with.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Come on, we'll go. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear us okay? Good, all right. For those of you who are on the phone, if you could please put your phone on mute or silent, and then when you have a question or a comment, just take your phone off of mute or silent and go right ahead and ask your question or share your comment. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started, and as always, I'd like to ask Etta to lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in praise and thanksgiving for being our creator, for being our sustainer, for being our provider, for being our God. God, we thank you for Florida Presbyterian Homes and for the life and worship that happens here. Today we ask, God, that your Holy Spirit would guide us in all of our conversations, in all of our planning, in all of our decisions. We pray that in everything that we do, that you always get the glory, for you alone are worthy. Now continue to be with us as we are moving into some important areas of our life where we're doing strategic planning as a group, where we're planning out not only the present but the future of Florida Presbyterian Homes. God, keep us centered on the mission and the vision that you've called us to, knowing that we work for you. So bless us as your servants, we pray. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. We're getting there. It's so nice to see at least half of your faces. Hopefully we won't be too much longer. We'll be able to see everybody's faces. We do ask that when you do come to a group outing like this, where it's a group event, that you continue to wear your mask. It's just the most safe approach is to wear the mask when you're in a group setting. We still have a few residents that have not been vaccinated. We also have residents that have immunosuppressive disorders, challenges. So even if they've been vaccinated, if they have something severe such as leukemia or something like that that they're fighting, even though they've been protected with the vaccine, catching it, they can still catch it. So fortunately, the vaccine protects everyone that has had the vaccine, but if you already have some disorder, some major issue, you're weak, and you don't want to have a virus on top of that. So it's just something right now we ask that you continue to wear your mask when you're in a group setting. Okay? So thank you all for doing that today. The agenda today is I'll go through the Executive Director report, and then David and I will talk about the Loving Care Fund. I've asked Maria and Rick just to give us an update on how things went with Elsa, and then things that we always need to be aware of during hurricane season. Then Maria will be coming up to talk about Porter McGrath as well as assisted living. And Samantha, our Director of Life Enrichment, will be sharing with you some of the things that are coming up in August and some of the things that we've done so far in July. And then I'll give a dining room update. I forgot Dean was off today, so I got the update from him and I'll share it with you. And then at the end, we'll have, like we always do, questions and comments. So if there's anything that we didn't cover or anything that you'd like more detail or more information on, we'll be happy to cover that as well. So why don't we go ahead and get started. In the Executive Director report, the 4 Bunker update. So the exterior painting of 4 Bunker is scheduled to begin early to mid-August, and it's going to take about 3 weeks. There's a team that'll be coming out that we've contracted with to paint the entire exterior of 4 Bunker. The paint colors have been displayed in the lobby, in the family room at 4 Bunker. So we're really excited about getting that underway and getting that started. The team that is doing that painting is a company that's been here before, that has painted on this campus before, so they understand that safety is priority 1. And we're going to try and make it as minimal a headache for the residents who come and go from 4 Bunker on a daily basis. We'll try to make that as minimal a headache as possible. But we're very excited about that moving forward and getting that done. The contract's been signed, they're scheduled. Hopefully weather won't delay us, so we'll be able to get this done within a 3-week period in August. That's what we're shooting for. The paint's already been ordered, so we have that. I don't know if you're reading in the news media that paint has become something really hard to get, but we were able to order it in advance and have the paint. So Sherwin-Williams is wonderful working with us to get that done. The interior of 4 Bunker, Skylar, who is our director, our supervisor looking at marketing and sales. She works with Cher and I. Skylar's focus is on the interior. She's looking at flooring, carpeting, the vinyl flooring, The plan that we have now was actually recommended by a couple of residents from Four Bunker, was to carpet where the seating area is by the fireplace, and then to have the hardy plank, the vinyl plank, around that area in the walkways. So where the walkways are would be vinyl planking, and where the seating area is would be carpeting. So she's getting different colors, different schemes, and getting all the estimates working on that. We've also looked at the furniture, and we looked at reupholstering the furniture because we had a couple of residents that use that furniture a lot, and they love it. So they say, please don't change the furniture, just reupholster. So what we're doing is there's going to be a combination where we'll be getting some new furniture into that area, and we'll repurpose that furniture to another part of that area. So by the fireplace, we'll have what'll be new furniture. We want to make sure that it's comfortable for residents. The initial furniture that we were looking at had the hardwood arms, and the feedback we got from residents was that's really hard to push off of and can cause skin tear. So Skylar is doing another round looking at some different furniture that's a little softer and has the cushioning on the arms, so it's easy to use but comfortable. So that's in process right now. We hope that that'll get done, that those orders for the flooring and the furniture will be completed in August, and we hope to get that, depending on delays of that order, I can't tell you right now how long it will take, but we hope to get all that in and get it done this year for the interior of Four Bunker, from the lobby area, from the entrance into the main seating area.
Would you allow yourself to speak without a mask, please?
I would be fine. Can you guys, if I take the mask off for my speaking, are you guys okay with that? Okay. It works better for you? Good. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Nancy? We work with an interior designer from a firm called Gresham Smith, who's done a lot of work here on the campus. So that's the interior designer, and then she gives Skylar ideas. The question, and what we need to do, and it's on me, and anybody who's up here speaking, please make sure you repeat the questions so everybody on the phone and everybody in the room can hear. That works a little better, I think, than walking around with the microphone and handing the microphone. So we'll repeat the questions for everybody to hear. The question that Nancy asked was, are we working with an interior design firm? We are. The firm is called Gresham Smith. It's a firm that the organization has used in the past. And she's provided us with ideas and concepts for the exterior painting, the flooring, as well as the furniture. So, and Jim, right? Jim had asked earlier about taking my mask off. So that was a question on taking the mask off. Okay, so we'll do that from now on. We'll make sure we repeat the questions. Any other questions on Four Bunker, on the updates for the interior and the exterior of Four Bunker? Okay. Strategic planning overview. So we had the kickoff meeting with all of the team members were invited. We had some technical issues with YouTube, but I understand right now that it is on YouTube and up and running for people to be able to see it. In the strategic planning, the action planning teams are starting their meetings. They've begun the process of meeting. We have 35 residents who are involved in the planning process on an action team. We have 30 staff who are on an action team. We have 17 board members. All of the board members are participating on the process. And we have 13 people who are from the broader community who are also participating in the process. So how were people selected? People were selected based on specifically the residents. We asked the team leaders, who do you know as residents that have talked to you about these specific issues and areas in the past? who has an interest, who's expressed an interest to you in these specific areas. So that's basically how we selected residents. It was, do they have an experience base that would help us with this process, and have they in the past communicated with us about any of the 5 areas that we're focusing on: resident quality of life, employee satisfaction, healthcare excellence, financial stewardship and sustainability, and community impact. And so that's how we put these teams together. We have one team that has 20 people on it. That's a lot for one team to work through a strategic planning process. You normally try to have about 8 to 9 people, but it's an area in Porter McGrath that we wanted to have a good representation of residents, community leaders from the hospital, people from state associations, Leading Age, and get them involved. So the process has begun. The teams will start meeting in the next week or so. If you're on one of the teams, you should be getting, any day this week, you'll be getting an invitation to attend an upcoming meeting of one of the teams that you're on. And that process will meet, the action teams will meet monthly, once a month for the next 3 to 4 months. And then by October, we hope that each team has developed a 3-year action plan for the specific goal that they're focused on, and that'll be presented to the management team and then presented to the full board in their October meeting. If we don't get action teams completed by that point in time, we'll meet with the board in November and hold a special meeting in November or December with the board to review all action plans at that point in time. And at the end of the day, the product that we hope to have is a document that outlines what are the specific steps that are going to be taken each year over the next 3 years to improve on resident quality of life, to improve on employee satisfaction, to improve on financial sustainability, and to improve on healthcare excellence, and to improve on community impact. So this is a little different than a lot of other organizations in terms of the process. In the other organizations I've been in, I've always implemented with resident involvement. Other organizations often will hire a consultant and say to the consultant, here's what our issues are, come up with a strategic plan for us. I've seen other organizations where a few people on the management team meet and say, here's our action plan and the strategic plan. By doing it this way, it takes a little bit longer, but we get input from everybody, and that input will develop a better plan in the end. I've seen it everywhere I've been. If it's just a few managers or just a consultant, they don't know the organization, they don't have the experience that the residents have living in the organization, so it really helps to have everybody involved in it. We'll be reporting and updating as progress is being made in this meeting. We'll update residents so you guys are aware of the progress that's being made on the planning throughout the process. And then when we have a final plan, if you'd like to see the full detailed final plan, we'd be more than welcome to have you come and check it out. We don't hand it out. Why don't you think we hand it out to everybody? Thoughts? Yeah, we don't want to give our secrets away. So the plan is for the organization. It's for us to all understand the direction we're going. I don't want to hand that out and take the risk that somebody from Carpenters gets it, someone from Lake Gibson gets it. Oh, they're going to do this. Well, we'll do this then. And they don't share their plans with us. We don't want to share our plans with them. So that's exactly right. But certainly if a resident said, I really would like to see it, by all means, you're welcome to, we'll have it set up in my office, and we'll have it set up where you can come, sit with it, look at it, read it, ask questions about it. We'll be happy to do that. We just don't want to have it out in the public. Paula?
You said you passed out the final plan. What about the stages as the committees are looking on them? Will other people not have input during that time as well? It would seem to me
Well, the reason we put residents on these is to represent the residents. So that's where we're getting the resident representation. If you have an area that you're specifically interested in or have concerns, share those issues directly with me, and I will distribute those issues to the committees. It's impossible to do a strategic plan with 300 people. It just is if you have a specific interest in a specific action step, we share it with me, I will get it to that team, and they will have that. Paula?
For instance, you said that you will have these things available in your office.
Yeah.
This would be staged then so that before it's finalized, people could come to the office and find out what's going on.
I will give updates here. If you have questions or want to share comments here, by all means, because that way everybody hears it and that information gets dispersed to all of the residents and all of the people on the committees. So I will update people here, and if you have a specific area or question or comment, ask it, bring it, share what your concerns are, and we'll make sure that that information gets to the appropriate committee because it's done all here. I think that's what we've done in other places, and it's worked really well.
Are the members of the committees public so that we can approach them?
We will do that. That's a good idea. We will present who the leaders are and who's on the committees.
Especially the residents.
Sure. Yep. I ask you to be respectful of each other. It's just these people are volunteering time to do this, so please be respectful of their time on these committees. Okay, Nance?
How does this affect the resident handbook?
So the question is, how does this affect the resident's handbook? The resident handbook is a separate document. Right now, the managers are almost done going through and reviewing it. So once they get it done, it goes back to the resident task force that started the process for their input and review. That resident task force, and you know this, but that resident task force are the ones who defined what is the content that should be in the resident handbook. So now we've taken the content and started filling in the information, and then it goes back to that task force for input. Once that task force is done, it goes to the resident council, to Martha and the resident council officers for their input, and then once that's completed, management reviews it with the board, and it gets finalized at that point in time.
So the
Paul?
resident council will start to meet again and make themselves available to the residents in general?
That's something you should talk with Martha Pope about. Yeah, Martha and the council officers have been posting when they're having meetings, and I know in August they are scheduled to do a full resident council meeting with all residents here in the chapel.
It would seem since you're the director that you might get a handle on it too.
Well, I don't tell Martha and the resident council officers what to do.
They might be held.
Yeah.
How often and they affect.
Yeah, August. Yeah, they're going to be, their normal scheduled August meeting was already in the scoop once, and it was posted. So that's when their normal meeting is. Yep. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. Employee compensation initiative. This is a extremely important topic for all of us. Over the past few months, we've been seeing the change in our marketplace. If you drive down Florida Avenue, you see now hiring, now hiring, now hiring. You see that companies like McDonald's, Walmart, Amazon are all paying $15 or more an hour. We're seeing a number of our staff in this period that have left the organization for jobs at Applebee's or at Tico or at McDonald's or at Amazon because of the pay. And so this is not unique to Florida Presbyterian Homes by any means. This is something that our entire country and the world is facing right now as a labor shortage. Number one, 600,000 Americans died So a large part of our population, significant number, people died due to COVID. The next aspect of COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs and aren't ready to come back into the workforce for a variety of reasons. We hear all types of different reasons that are out there in the public. They're getting money from the government, why would they come back? They don't have daycare for their kids. How would they come back even if they wanted to come back, because so many daycares have closed? There's so many issues and reasons that are driving why we have this shortage of labor and employees, to serve our residents and to work with our staff. So our plan, you may recall that in 2020, the Florida Congress and Governor DeSantis had passed that by 2026, all organizations' minimum wage had to be up to $15 by January 1st, 2026. So our plan was between 2011 and that day, raise the minimum wage here $1 every year. Because the market moved quickly, we couldn't just wait to do that. We couldn't say, well, let's just keep waiting and we'll wait till 2011 or 2022 to make our next move. We couldn't. We were losing staff and we were having a really hard time recruiting staff into our community. The key areas that we were struggling and have been struggling with are certified nursing assistants, CNAs, housekeepers, maintenance staff, dietary aides, and cooks. Those are primarily the areas that we've really been struggling with. We will get people who will apply. When we talk to them about the wage, we don't hear from them again. Or we've even had people who will accept the position and not show up, for first day of work or to get their tests, their background tests. I think part of the issue is the wage. And we don't know how many people aren't applying because of wage. We can't measure that. But we know the people that have applied have told us the wage, I can do better, elsewhere. So we have a balance, right? There's a balance to what we can do as an organization. The balance is we can't just throw that expense onto the operating budget and try to recoup all of it from the residents, right? I mean, you look at it and think, oh my gosh, if we went to $15 minimum wage today, that expense would be about $1 million into the budget, and that would be an ongoing expense. So at this point, under Kim, our Director of Human Resources Leadership, Kim has been looking at wages and looking at market wage in our area and looking at within our field, what is the market wage for providers like Lake Gibson, like Florida Presbyterian Homes, States at Carpenters, trying to get an idea of where we fit in. So they have shifted in their market. We're seeing Lake Gibson, Carpenters paying higher rates in most cases, not in all cases, but in most cases to those key areas. So we've taken each one of those areas and made a market rate adjustment that is in this pay period. Going into this pay period, which just got approved today, the market wage adjustment for all staff that fell below their minimum wage, the new minimum wage, if they're below that, they were brought up to the new minimum wage. If new people that are looking at us, we're now offering that new minimum wage, not the old minimum wage. We've made those adjustments within this pay period to get people in the market, to be more competitive in hiring and retaining our staff. That's already occurred. The other question is, what about staff who've been here for years? So if they were below, they were brought up to that minimum. But still, people say, well, wait, I've been here for years. That person just started yesterday, and I'm getting paid the same amount. So the way that we've addressed that is through an attendance incentive bonus. And so what that attendance incentive bonus is based on is longevity. How many years has a person been here? If they were here for a first year, they're new employees, the percentage they would get in their bonus is fairly low. If they were here for 5 years plus, they would get more in that incentive bonus. If they were here 10 years plus, they would get more than someone at 5 or someone who's brand new. So in that incentive plan, the way they earn that incentive is by showing up to work when they're scheduled on time, working their full shift, and working the full shift. If they call off, they get points deducted. If they don't show up, they get points deducted. It's all tied to our attendance policy. So it's a program that has positives as well as negatives based on their behavior. And it's strictly focused on attendance. It's not focused on, as a manager, do I think this person's a good person? Do they do a good job? No. That's part of their annual review. That type of performance is addressed in their annual review, and they stand to make a wage benefit based on their performance through the annual review. Through this incentive program, it's solely based on attendance and just coming to work when you're supposed to come to work and working your full shift. You get points for that. And so people who've been here longer stand to make more money through this incentive program. Questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Sherry? Oh, hold on. Sherry? Let me ask one at a time, Sam. Sherry?
Some of the people that have left, I know some of them have not left because of wages.
Sherry's saying some of the people that have left, it wasn't wages. So we do an exit interview, and so we get feedback. The majority that we're hearing from the exit interviews is tied to wages. There are situations where someone will say, I don't get along with my supervisor, or I don't like the work anymore, I could do a different job, I'd rather do a different job. So we get all that, but the majority of it has been tied to wages.
So, and it would depend on the exit interview, and who does that exit interview?
It's usually Kim from Human Resources. So Kim will reach out and ask, what was the reason for your leaving? Okay, that's all right. David, I may ask you to come up. Sam has asked a question about what is the amount. We had a cap amount. So one of the things that we did, and David's on his way up, Sam asked the question of how much does this cost? And so we're going to go through that with David here. But one of the things we did was we capped it. So it couldn't be that it would exceed budget, and we'd be in a position of, oh my gosh, we're paying out more than budget can support.
But the price for the
wage adjustment?
For the bonus or for the wage adjustment?
Both.
Okay. The price for the wage adjustment came out to, I want to say $215,000 on an annualized basis. And the price that we have, and this assumes everyone hits it on the head every pay period, every hour. Max would be around $215,000 on an annualized basis. Can't hear.
With the amounts for the wage and
right. So in total, it's 215 plus what is?
About 220, I think was.
Plus 220, so it'll be 435 overall on an annualized basis. But it's just part of it's kind of considered hard. It's went into implementation now. About half of it went into implementation now. The other half is based on an incentive, if they meet the incentive. And they have to meet it essentially every day. And there'll be that assumes no point take back for no call, no show, or a absence. So
that would be the maximum for the bonus program. That would be the maximum payout. If everybody hit every single hour, every day of their shift, they met the goal. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Other questions, comments relative to the program? We're all going to have to watch. This is a pilot program, so we're going to see how does this help us with recruitment, how does this help us with retention. But again, if we said, well, we're going to jump to 15 and try to do that right now, budget-wise, we wouldn't have been able to cover that. Yep, that's right, Sam. It was too much. So hopefully this will work, and hopefully we'll see that it will be able to address retention and be able to recruit people into these roles. The CNA role, the housekeeper role, maintenance, dietary aides, and cooks. Those are the areas. The bonus program is for all hourly employees. It's all hourly employees, the bonus program. Management doesn't participate in that. It's only hourly employees, and all hourly employees participate in the bonus program. Only the positions that identified participated in the market wage adjustment. Okay. Any other comments, questions on that? Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to go right into Loving Care Fund update, and I'll ask David to come up again and get your workout today. The Loving Care Fund update, there's just recently, accounting sent out a letter to people for their 3-year financial updates, and that was based on, originally, it was based on your anniversary date. And David's going to talk about why we changed that. But I want to speak to why we did the Loving Care Fund policy changes that we did a year ago. It's a good thing sometimes to repeat. We've talked about this multiple times as we were moving through this process. We had a task force of residents that were involved in helping us update the Loving Care Fund policy. But let me review that again and why we did this and made the changes to the Loving Care Fund. The Loving Care Fund right now financially is solvent. The endowment is solid. You know, I think we have, what, how many million in the, 12 million in the Loving Care Fund endowment. We have 6 residents in independent living and assisted living that benefit from that fund. So it's financially solvent. The money's coming out of the fund to pay for the expenses of living for those 6 residents. So we try not to touch principal. That's really important. It's a setup as an endowment, so we don't want to take the principal out of the endowment. We want to be able to operate off of the interest that we get, not the principal. So key things with the Loving Care Fund and why we've made these changes is to make sure that the people who receive the Loving Care Fund have simply outlived their resources. We've had situations here, and I've seen this elsewhere in other organizations I've been, where we had one spouse living in a 2-bedroom apartment, deluxe, under the Loving Care Fund, and a spouse that was under Loving Care Fund in assisted living, and they were saying that their expenses were, everything was going towards the Loving Care Fund. When the spouse moved to a higher level of care to be with their spouse, they suddenly had the money to pay for their higher level of care when we asked for financial information. That's not a good thing. I mean, that's a situation where somebody is taking advantage of the Loving Care Fund, where they had the resources to pay privately, but because we weren't asking on a regular basis to get an idea of where are people financially, it wasn't until we did that they stepped forward and said, well, we no longer need to participate in the Loving Care Fund. So the reason we do this every 3 years is to make sure that we budget and have some idea of how many people are going to need the loving care fund over the next few years. It's an ability for us to look at it and go, okay, how do we budget? How do we make sure? As let's say all of a sudden we start to see, oh my gosh, the numbers are really going up, then we do fundraising. We focus on, we've got to build the fund because we're now at risk because people are projecting to need the fund. The other thing this does, by doing this every 3 years, is if we see somebody that had $1 million 3 years ago in assets and are down to $60,000, we can meet with them and find out what happened, you know, and talk to them. I had a situation in another community where a resident turned over her assets to a family member, and the family member started using those assets for himself. And when I saw the financial change that happened to this resident's numbers in a 3-year period, I met with the son and the resident and said, could you tell me what happened here? You know, 3 years ago you were here, and now you're here. Well, I turned over my assets to my son to manage. And I asked the son, were you spending that on mom, or were you spending that on yourself? And he said, a lot of it I spent on myself. And I said, well, you now have a year to start putting money back into your mom's account. That money is for her. That's what the money was, you know, when we agreed to have the person move in, it was her money. So you can't gift it away and then just give it away and then say, oh, I'm out of money, I need the loving care fund. So that's why we're going to do this every 3 years. And so we can budget appropriately and have an idea of where the needs are. Helene?
If we have a question for you about this subject, do you want that question now, or do you want us to wait until questions and comments?
You can, so Helene asked a question, should we ask questions now or questions? Ask now, Helene, while we're talking about this subject, sure.
For instance, I wish I could, well, he's not going to repeat all this.
I'll try.
Anyway, I'm sure that you've been aware that since the letter went out, there's a great deal of consternation in the community about giving you and the board this financial information, which we have never had to do. And in fact, my contract with you people says this agreement may be terminated upon 30 days notice of termination by the non-payment of monthly service fees for a period of 3 months. The Loving Care Fund has been established to assist in providing for those unable to pay the full cost of their care. Any residents who becomes unable to pay required fees will be requested to make a complete disclosure of their financial resources in applying for financial aid. That makes perfect sense to me, and is why I signed the contract 24 years ago. Now I am being asked to get a lawyer or a CPA or somebody and give you all of this financial information, which I can't help but think, according to my contract, is none of your business. I mean, I don't mean to,
Yeah.
but it isn't.
So it is, though.
If I were in arrears and were missing payments, I would certainly expect you to need a financial statement from me.
So the risk, so the question, let me go through and try to state, it really was the question. Yeah, I don't know if the folks on the phone or watching heard, but the question or the statement is that based on the contract that was signed, if you outlive your resources or you can't pay, at that point in time, we would request that information. At that point in time, it's too late. It's something that you've already distributed assets, or if we look at it and say, oh, you've spent down your assets and you've simply outlived them, there's no problem with the Loving Care Fund. But
Actually, I really think that any of us who live here and have lived here for a long time, and this what
Yeah.
now.
That hasn't happened with the couple that I just spoke to you about.
No, but
You
they
know,
weren't here either.
they were here. They absolutely were here.
Said that happened at another.
No, that couple was here. That couple was here and that happened. The woman and her son was elsewhere.
Since I am not in arrears, and I believe that nobody else in the community is, I don't find any reason why I would comply with this request, because my contract says I don't have to unless and until.
So it is we can change policy, and in the policy that we had in the Loving Care Fund, there was information in there that we do have the right to ask for financial information, which is an attachment to your contract. And it did say in the attachment that we have the right to ask for that information at any point.
I have never received an attachment to my contract.
Yeah, it should have been, because in most of them there are.
But at any rate, all I'm saying is that this is causing a great deal of not very good feelings for you, because of this request, and everybody's saying, well, I don't know, should we get a lawyer, or is this legal?
It is legal.
I mean,
So that's up to you. If you want to get a lawyer, get a lawyer. It is legal. It is in the agreement that we can ask for information. It's in the resident handbook, historically.
but what makes it legal that it is not part of my contract that I signed to get in here?
If the whole idea of the Loving Care Fund policy is to make sure that people who simply outlive the resources have access to it, all this is doing,
The Loving Care Fund is a tremendous attraction to
right,
this place, trust me.
yeah. It's been everywhere I've been has had a Loving Care Fund, and everywhere I've been,
But that has been because most of the places, I think, where you were affiliated with some religious
sure,
body,
Yep.
Presbyterian, Lutherans, I don't care what.
yeah.
And we would never have moved into one that did not have an
Right.
agreement with some kind of religious facility. And
So-
now I understand that we are no longer, nobody ever told us that, but that we're no longer with the Presbyterians or anybody else.
We are. I don't know where that comes from. There is a synod covenant with the Presbyterian, Eastern Atlantic. We are, so I don't know where those rumors are. I can show you the covenant. If you want to see the covenant, it's a signed covenant from 2015.
This is seriously what the residents have been told.
Yeah.
It happened when John was here and that he.
Yeah, they were, I wonder who told them. I bet it wasn't John, and I'll bet it wasn't the board. Yeah. I can show you the covenant. We have a covenant, and it's signed by John, and it's signed by, and I can't remember his name right now, but from the Eastern Atlantic Synod.
What happened to the auxiliary? What happened to the relationship we had?
Shirley, did you have a comment? Shirley? Yep.
I do. I'm wondering what happened to trust.
Yeah.
Hear me out, Colleen. We all made a contract with Fort Presbyterian Home. You all made a contract with us. I trust that. The history that I have with Fort Presbyterian Home supports that trust.
don't have to because of our contract, that, and our punishment for that, the threat to us for that, is that we would no longer be considered eligible for the Loving Care Fund. And I find that extremely distressing.
So,
I think our not best.
okay.
2 years ago, when we signed a contract with all of you, we were told very specifically at that time that within 3 years, our finances would be revisited. As a corporation, as a company, there's nothing else you can do. How else can you run this place if you don't know what our assets are and what our needs are going to be?
But all of us were not told that, Shirley.
Yeah, we weren't.
Yeah.
Cher said that you will never have to, I mean, that's why a lot of us moved in here.
It's,
So some of us got the information and some of us did not.
We were protected when we moved in.
yeah. Paula, did you have?
I would like to read from the letter, and I think this is a part that probably was poorly worded and has offended many people. One paragraph, it is paragraph 3 of the letter. Eligibility or participation in the Loving Care Program is contingent based upon receiving your information. The information is held in strict confidence and is being used to evaluate the future uses of the program. When I came here, like Colleen, I came here 11 years ago, 11 years ago, and I did not sign anything that said I had to disclose my finances, nor have I ever since I've been here disclosed my finances. I received a letter about 3 months ago from the two of you and whoever else, the board, that records had been stolen and gotten at an outbuilding. That says to me that you are not good keepers of confidential records. I am not willing to give you my records to store anywhere. However, what I will do, because I know what you're saying is true, you have to have some sort of idea of what's going on, that people aren't cheating the homes. I talked with my son, who's retired from the military and has held responsible positions. And what he suggested is that for me, I don't know what other people want to do, but that we could meet with you. He would come down if need be, but I couldn't do it myself right now, and let you see all of this. You may not record it, you may not copy it, you may not keep it in your files because you can't take care of your files safely, but you may peruse the information and have an approximate idea of what my net worth is and whether I am siphoning money off to give to my children or other people, the dog, the cat, the whatever. But I think that is a poorly worded paragraph in the letter, because our participation in the Loving Care Fund is not contingent based on receiving the information that's demanded by this letter by September 30th. I have no intention of providing it in writing by September 30th. However, I will make an appointment with you, David, or whomever, to allow you to look over all of this information and see what I have. And you can see it anytime you want to. But I am not willing for you to have it and store it in your records because you cannot take care of your records the way you should. Excuse me, and thank you.
Thanks, Paula. So I appreciate exactly where you're coming from. Yeah, I want to repeat, the concerns that Paula expressed were relative to the New York house and computer being taken from the New York house and the potential issue for identity theft, financial information, so on. That is a legitimate concern. I hear you. There's nothing that you said that I would say you're wrong. You're not. I mean, that's a legitimate concern. The reality of that risk was, as reviewed by our company Data Tech and reviewed by legal counsel, was really small based on what it was, but that small risk was there. So one of the things that we've been talking about based on feedback that we've been getting from residents similar to what you're saying, is having a letter that goes out that asks you to attest to the assets that you have and put the number in, and the annual income that you have. And that's it, just the numbers. What my income is for the year, what my assets are, and that you're signing that as an attestation to be true to the best of your knowledge. And that we have that information, and that's where trust comes in, and we say, okay, you know, does that seem reasonable? And we can compare it to your original application. And I know for some that's a long time ago, but we can go back and compare and say, okay, is that a pretty normal expenditure that they've spent down in their assets? And if we see that there's a big drop, a significant drop, then we would ask to meet with you and review that information with you to bring into the meeting and meet with you. The idea of this is to protect Florida Presbyterian homes and the Loving Care Fund. And there are people, unfortunately, that will abuse the system. That just happens. And sometimes they don't even realize it. Like the example I gave of another community where it was a woman who said to her son, will you manage my assets? And he was depleting her assets for his own use. Those things happen, and we want to prevent that from happening. I had a situation where a son, the couple, the wife they lived in an independent living apartment. The wife had severe dementia. The husband had some physical health issues. They were in their mid-80s. The son, I found out, was living in their apartment. And he used to lay across the front of the door at night on a cot so his mother couldn't leave. So this guy went to his father, said, I want my inheritance now. I want $500,000. I'm going to buy web addresses from GoDaddy. And then I'm going to sell those web addresses for millions of dollars, and I'll pay you back in spades. And the father, with the son's constant pressure, said, okay, and gave his son this money. So when I found out, and I met with the son, and I met with the couple, I said to the son, one, you can no longer be on this campus. If you want to meet with your mother and father, you have to go off campus. And I informed the police got involved. I informed the state ombudsman, the ombudsman got involved. So we put those pieces in place. Then I worked with the state ombudsman to say to the son, you've got 6 months to put that money back into your mom and dad's estate. And this guy ended up going to jail for financial abuse of his parents. So what we did, though, because at that point, the organization, Christian organization, had a decision to make. Was this the parents' fault, and should they not have access to their loving care fund? And we as an organization said, we're not going to do that to them. They've had enough done to them, and we want to take care of them for the rest of their lives. Now, some people in this room and on the phone may look at that and say, well, that's not right, because now that's loving care fund money that's going for people who made a really stupid decision. Well, that was the process we went through with the board and determined that it wasn't their fault, that this son really abused them. And that's how I think we would approach it here. We would look at what are the circumstances, what are the issues. If there's things that we can work and help and say, you know, instead of being in a 2-bedroom apartment, move to the studio apartment where you're spending less money, things like that, that's what we would do.
One comfort we've always had about the Loving Care Fund is that we all know that the principal cannot be touched.
Yeah.
And that we're living on the interest. And I remember when Tom went to court to have it fixed so that he could use the rest of the interest that wasn't being used for people on projects that would benefit the entire community. decades
Yeah.
before he got permission to do that. So I've always had total confidence in the availability and the safety of the Loving Care Fund. And I don't feel as though we are threatening it unless we are somehow not abiding by our contracts.
And there are people who haven't been. And so it's in this, by asking every 3 years, we can start to track, Helene. So say, oh my gosh, this person was here and now they're here, what happened? And meet with that person and find out what happened. And make changes to say, you're in a 2-bedroom deluxe, you need to move to a studio, so we're spending less of the Loving Care Fund.
Nobody ever in this place knew who was on the Loving Care Fund.
Yeah.
You have to move from your lovely apartment into a studio apartment, and everybody in the world is going to say, well, she's on the Loving Care Fund, obviously.
Well, the idea is to protect the Loving Care Fund and to make sure it's there.
Beautifully for 24 years. I don't know what the problem is now.
I told you, we've had people who've cheated. I mean, I don't know, I can't tell you names, but we've had people who've cheated. And we're going to protect the fund because we want it to be for people who've simply outlived their resources and not for people who are like, I can put my money over here and hide it and I'll give it to the kids down the road and the organization ends up footing the bill. It's happened.
I somehow trust we have $12 million in there and you can't touch the principal. I think we're protected.
Well, so we should allow people to cheat.
No.
Well, how would you find out if you don't ask every 3 years? How would you know?
I don't know. I've been here 24 years. It's the first time anybody ever asked me.
Yeah,
I think it's the way it was asked was offensive to
yeah.
us. The way this letter was worded, I think it could have been a lot justice than, I mean, I really, when I first read it, I was furious, and then I read it, I thought, and then I called.
Okay.
I think the way the letter was written was poorly written, and it's offensive language. And people took offense to it, not so much, I mean, imagine turning over bank statements, investment statements, and tax returns.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit different than you're saying, write down your net, what your net income or your gross income or whatever you want.
Yeah.
On an annual basis. And I think that people took offense to this letter,
Yeah.
the way it is written. It's written poorly.
So-
I don't know why.
So,
I think it was the specific. I think it was the way the letter was written, all the specific things that we needed to list, every little bits and pieces almost. I think that's what offended a lot of people, not just your income.
so one of the things that we talked about, and David is redrafting the letter, and it will basically ask for you to attest what is your assets, what is your income. And we'll do that every 3 years. And that way, if we see this rapid decline in that period, we'll ask to meet with you. And at that time, we'll ask, could you please bring your bank statements? Could you please bring your tax information? Ella?
Having worked in management in a public service organization, understand the need to get information. I sent the letter back with information that I had. It didn't bother me. I did say, I don't know what my income will be next year since my husband is no longer living. But I am very fortunate, and so I thank God. I think I will never need it, but I don't want to say I never will, because whoever knows, you know? Sure. So I may outlive my in-laws' trust, but so far I'm living on their trust too. So there you go.
Did you
Some of
want
us
to
are
add
very
anything?
fortunate.
Do you want to? Thanks, Ella. Do you want to add
How many
anything?
people are receiving money from this?
Six.
Six?
Yep.
6 what? I didn't hear.
Residents are receiving money from the Loving Care Fund. Right. Did you have anything you want to add?
Well,
Well, it's obvious that I need to apologize for the language in the letter. I'm sorry about that. It wasn't meant to be the way it came off, obviously. We have rewritten the letter to just be an attestation. Here are the 2 lines because of some of the pushback what we've gotten, and we can understand your concern over the New York House break-in. But this was a little bit of a pilot program, and in the beginning is always going to be birth pangs, and we felt them. So we have changed the letter, but I think the concern, since what we've experienced on our end, you know, we can't necessarily broadcast the history or the experience we've had. It wouldn't be necessarily prudent so we were just trying to protect the fund. And granted, I told Joe the fund has 12 million total. It's about split 50-50. 50% is endowment where principal can't be touched. The other 50% is usable. It's a temporary. It's all the income that has generated over the years. But we leave it in the investment account at Truist now, I think is where they are, instead of SunTrust.
Please clarify that again, about the 50%. I thought the whole.
Well, there's essentially 2 funds in the Loving Care Fund.
I understand that perfectly.
There's the endowment where the principal is fixed and only the interest and dividends that are earned off the endowment go into, so it's the Loving Care Endowment Fund, I apologize. There's a Loving Care Endowment Fund and there's a Loving Care Fund. The Loving Care Endowment Fund holds the endowment and only the interest and dividends flow over to the Loving Care Fund. The money from the Loving Care Fund go to the company, not entirely, but just what the subsidy is. We match dollar for dollar. We don't take out more than that. But it's matched dollar for dollar, and it goes from the Loving Care Fund to unrestricted, to essentially subsidize the budget for the subsidy that's given to the residents, the 6 residents now that are participating. So that's how the mechanics of it work.
Oh, Mildred?
All of us here hope and pray we will never need to use the Loving Care Fund. I know 11 years ago when we came, access to the Loving Care Fund was part of the marketing program. In one of your communications with us within the last 10 days, I believe, you mentioned if any of you are down, if your assets are getting down close to $50,000, we need to know right away so we can work with you on plans going forward for your care and well-being here at Presbyterian Homes. Why can you, and am I not correct that you know when people move in here, they have adequate funds for a good while or they wouldn't have been able to come here? Why can you not say if you are aware that your funds are dropping because of your medical expenses, your cancer, your whatever expenses you're dealing with, let us know if your assets are getting to be close to our minimum, which is X number of dollars.
So you're right. What I do is I put a notice out every couple of months saying that if your assets are approaching $50,000, please let us know.
Having a reasonable plateau there of our assets that are going to be needed for the next foreseeable week.
Right.
We can't foresee whether we will or not need the fund. But have a reasonable amount that we are required to notify you if we see we're dropping below it.
And that would be the 50,000, and then, but we still need to have an idea of where people are moving over a period of time. Because if we do that, and then I meet with you then, and you say, well, you know, about 8 months ago I gave all my assets to my son, and my son spent down. And if that happens a lot, that fund will start depleting based on people making decisions that are not good decisions and impact the entire fund.
I understand that. I believe to qualify for Medicaid, they require a certain number of years called a look-back
Correct.
period. Why can you not have a look-back period?
Because you guys are with us a lot longer than 3 years. And so it really is with the idea that if we see that trajectory, we're able to do something about it before it's gone. Yeah, before it's gone. That's why. Bob, did you have a comment?
In your defense, and I hope you guys can hear me, about 3 or 4 years ago when we decided to look for a place like this, you know, we looked at several places and we decided on coming here, but Cher had talked about the fund and so forth. And when Cher talked about the fund, a friend of ours said, hey, you know, we just heard about somebody that just got kicked out of Presbyterian homes because they didn't have any money. Okay. So before we decided to come here, we checked on that. And it turned out that this person had funds, and then she bought cars for her kids, and they sold their house, gave their house away to one of their relatives and so forth. And that was the reason why the person left, and we understood why. And we were told, you know, you have to be responsible with your money, or, you know, you can't take advantage. Well, I was in business for many years, and one of the things I used to tell all my employees is that there's a thing called the lunatic fringe, okay? I don't know if you guys ever heard this or not, but the lunatic fringe said that there's about 5% of people that try to get away with something, and then there's another 5% at the high end that no matter, you know, whatever happens to them and how bad people treat them, they're happy, okay? Well, you have a lunatic fringe. People are always trying to get out of stuff, cheating and so forth, and it does happen, and it's happened here. It happens all over the world. There's always somebody that wants something for nothing, and I can see the point why you guys want to protect the fund, okay? It's something that happens, and we have a lunatic fringe. There's 5 people here in the residence that won't go get their shot, right? Okay? There's your 5% right there, okay? So,
Okay.
I think the fund needs to be protected, and I don't think that you guys are asking too much for people to at least disclose, you know, where they stand financially.
Thanks, Bob. Jeannie?
My main concern was that if I chose not to give you that information, that I had to opt out permanently. And who knows, I mean, I might live to be 100, or the stock market tanks, or I'm very, very sick and everything's gone and I've opted out. That's the only thing that really concerns me, because I understand the process in which you're needing to do. So I think something needs to be addressed in that area.
Okay. So there's a question on what if the stock market goes crazy, like it has, it goes down, it tanks. In that situation, if you're living off of the dividends and that's part of your assets and that's a significant part of your assets, that's not held against you. That's something that you weren't doing anything that was inappropriate. Now, Sherry, if you went to the dog track and bet $1 million on number 9, yeah. Isn't your dog in the dog track? And you bet on number 9 and it all goes kablooey, that's different. You know, that's different. Yeah, or in Bitcoin or something crazy. Oh, is she? She's spending the $250 to go on the, oh my gosh.
My situation is much different. I have no children. I have no family. I have no anyone. So I don't care if you know how much I've got. I just don't care.
Yeah.
As long as you
Protect it.
If I live to be 120, like she will, then I would want you to take care of it.
Absolutely.
That's why I moved in here, and also that it was a Christian
Okay. So the process that Jeannie's asking about is the way the existing letter's written, if you do not provide the information, you're opting out. The change that we're making is attest to the asset and the income as being accurate. And that signature of you saying that is what my income is and those are what my assets are is going to be what we go by. And so going forward, we do that every 3 years. If we see that 3 years ago, your assets were 800,000, I'm making that up, 800,000, and 3 years later you're at 60,000, what happened? Just because in normal living, you wouldn't spend that down so rapidly. And then we meet with you and go over go over that financial information with you, like Paula was saying, in person and walk through that. Marty?
Joe, there was something in that letter that said that it was going to be done on campus geographically. In other
Right.
words, it had Terrace Gardens being the next, not this year,
Correct.
but it sounds like you really want everything.
David can speak, yeah, it'll be geographically, yeah.
Yeah, when we were first talking about this many months ago, about getting the financial update, we didn't really think exactly the execution of it. To do a 3-year based on move-in was going to be very labor intensive to bring up the files and figure out who moved in when and do the calculations and get a list and do the check-off. It just seemed much easier to base it on geographical, people in this building or people in this building, to address it instead of the other way, because the other way would be actually very time consuming. We're trying to make it easier on you all, as least painful as possible, but easy on us as well.
It'll still be 3 years.
Right.
Right.
So that I just looked at the listed count of units across the campus and tried to break it up into 3 groups of 60-ish.
So does that mean if it says in that letter that our turn isn't until?
Right. It's like this year we put assisted living and 4 bunker. Then next year I think it's, well, it's another group of buildings, and then the year after that would be everyone else, and then we'll start all over again. So then the 4th year down the road would be who's reporting this year. And then
Also said to notify Joe if he went down to a certain point, and I'm not sure what that includes. So should I check?
right, what the floor is like what the lady over here was talking about, the floor of 50,000. I mean, if you're going through a medical deal or even a stay in the health center on a private stay or what have you, I mean, you could be burning 10 to 15,000 a month. So that 50,000 can burn pretty quickly. And the way the process goes with the application to the Loving Care program, it could take up to 2 to 3 months, because we have to go through a vetting, and we have to talk to a committee, and they have to vet, and then depending on the circumstances, it might even have to go to the board, and the board meets 4 times a year. So doing the timing of it, that's why we have that floor at the 50K, which is kind of low. But if it's in an emergency, and we've had where people call us up and say, hey, I'm out of money, what can I do? And they're down to 10. So we pushed it through. But, and we can do that. It's not that big of a deal. It's just that it helps the gradual process of managing through the system.
Is it possible to leave out that forever waive your right? We cannot foresee whether we're going to use up all of it.
Interestingly, when we sent this out, we've had 3 people who've opted out because they said, I'll never need it. So, yeah, and for them, yeah, but yeah, the key is now with the new letter is you're saying, this is my income, these are my assets. And if we see that in a 3-year period, there's a significant decline and we go back and we find out that at that point we say, bring your bank statements for the past 3 years, bring, like you were saying, the Medicaid look back, give us 3 years of financials and let's meet. And we see that, well, what happened here? You had 300,000, where did that go? Well, I gave it away to a charity, or I gave it here. at that point, it's can you get any of that money back? Because that was for your own use, not to be distributed widely. That's how that discussion would go, Mildred. But that's where the process has changed, that based on feedback we got from you guys and us looking at this again and saying, let's do the letter where it's simply, yes, this is accurate. You know, this is accurate as much and not so much that you're out. Now, if you don't provide the information, when we go to the board, we don't give names and we don't give numbers. What we do is we say, here's a circumstance number one. We use 1, 2, or 3, how many people. Number one had this happen. Number one bet on a bad horse. Number one, did this. Number two simply lived out the resources, and it shouldn't be an issue. But they have to decide on that number one. Well, that person took assets, lost a significant amount on a bet. Why should the organization fund that person? And they make that determination. So that's process-wise how it works, and how it would go through when we have those meetings. Okay.
Move to a new subject.
All right, Sam wants to move to a new subject. I'm all in. Let's move to a new, thanks, David. Thank you for your input and your insight into this. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask Maria and Rick to come up, give a quick briefing on hurricane, and then Maria will cover Porter McGrath and assisted living, and then Sam and Etta will cover spiritual life and life enrichment, and then I'll come back for the dining room update. Thanks.
Okay, Hurricane Elsa. I heard a lot of comments that really wasn't much of a hurricane. But thankfully, it wasn't. I'm very pleased that we didn't have any damage. We had a few minor roof leaks. Let me take this. But to prepare the property was our most challenging. We had staff go around to all the buildings, and one of the biggest concerns that I heard from the residents is, I have no place to store it. Well, we don't have any place to store it either. And that was the biggest, and that wasn't from the independent, that wasn't from the houses, that was from the residents in Four Bunker Manor in the A building. So we did our best working with the residents, putting the items in there. There was questions, why can't we put it in laundry? Why couldn't we put it in the hallways, interior hallways? Well, we don't want to create a safety risk for our residents. If we were to put it in laundry and somebody goes in there and does laundry, they could slip and fall or trip over the items that are in there. And plus, the laundries aren't big enough to hold all the patio furniture that we have on campus here either. So with that being said, the storm went through. I was here. Myself and Lenny worked it to 7:30 in the morning. When I came here, I had security patrol on the property all night long. Myself and Lenny were making rounds within the buildings here, checking for anything. We had, like I said, one roof leak in Monty Johnson Manor, and then we had a roof leak in residential living. We prepared the campus throughout the day before. We lowered awnings, picked up trash cans, and relocated items that could be picked up by the winds. But very fortunate, we didn't have any tree damage at all. No trees came down, no large limbs or anything like that. Also, it was pretty smooth storm to speak of. Trying to think. We do have the tree company coming out tomorrow. We have a tree list from the houses out there. If you have any trees that need to be trimmed up or anything like that, we do have a list down in maintenance. And like I said, he'll be out here tomorrow addressing several trees that I noticed and that the residents have called in on. And so we'll be trimming those up tomorrow. And Joe had mentioned Four Bunker Manor. The painting. We're going to start this week. You know the louvers on front of Four Bunker Manor on the ground floor, all those louvers? We have to remove those. And so we're going to experiment removing those this week to see how they come down, because it's a lot of work, it looks like. And It's gonna be a lot of preparation, but we need to get those down before August. That's when the painters are scheduled to start pressure washing and then painting. Any comments or questions or concerns that, that we might have overlooked for the hurricane?
You did a good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Prior to hurricane season, every department does go through the plan. We do have reciprocal agreements with Carpenters, the Estates of Carpenters, and with First Presbyterian. We have lost some contracts that we've had in the past because it was Highlands Health Center that had closed down and was restarting, and the consulate buildings are sister companies, so they only partner with their own facilities. I am reaching out to Lake Gibson to see if we can just get some other reciprocal agreements also in case we do have to evacuate. That is not our plan, plan of last recourse is to evacuate. Our plan is to shelter in place. And the industry has found that in evacuating, sometimes that causes more harm than anything. You evacuate and you think you're escaping the path of the storm, and you're going into the path of the storm. So sheltering in place is always the first line of defense for us. We also have received many grants in the past with the Tampa Bay Health Management Emergency Team, and they have grants available, and we have over 100 cots. We have emergency lighting, lanterns, evacuation sleds if power goes out and we have to evacuate people from higher levels. So we're very well equipped. We also, like I said, every year go through the plan. The plan is submitted to the county, and it has been approved by the county. So
residents in houses or duplexes would stay at home?
yes, shelter in place.
Could you repeat the question, Maria?
The question was if people from houses and residential, if they were to stay in their home. And the answer is yes. That is, we tell everybody to just prepare. Have your medications, food, water. We do have enough water and canned foods and, for emergencies, but we always tell everyone, as far as residential, independent living, and staff, to have their own plan in place. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a generator?
We have several.
Have several generators.
Yes.
The question is, do we have generators? And we have generators in the Nora Rife building. That runs our dietary department, the walk-in coolers, the freezers, all the equipment in the Nora Rife building. And then we have a generator for the ALF building, and then we have 2 generators for the health center. And prior to hurricane season, they're all checked out, the maintenance program on them. Then they're all fueled up, and then we have an additional 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel down at the maintenance shop to run those generators.
Nothing in independent living?
No, not unless you've purchased one for yourself. We have 2 residents with whole house generators, yes.
In the houses,
In the houses, yes, houses.
not the apartments. Right, right. Thank you. Thanks.
Then for Porter McGrath and assisted living, he mentioned what maintenance, and they did a very good job of being here and rounding. As far as nursing department, the threat was tornadoes, of course, so just making sure that everyone had their radios charged. Everyone had extra batteries, had radios charged. We also have 2 radios that were given to us through that grant program with Tampa Bay Health Management Emergency Department, and we have a base where Ann Smith sits at in the reception area of Porter McGrath, that if all of our communication was to go down, landline and cell phones, we could communicate with that radio
directly to Polk County Health Department. Okay, so we have a base, and I have a handheld in my office as a backup as well. So, you know, we're pretty much ready. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Butta McGrath and Assisted Living. We have, as Joe talked about, staffing and the compensation rates and so forth. So we've had our staffing challenges. We have gone through a period of not having any agency help in Butta McGrath. In the 29 years that I have been here, we have never used agency in assisted living. We did have to resort to an agency nurse just this last week in assisted living for the first time ever, and hopefully the last time that we have to go through that, because it is more of a unique area for assisted living. The nurse in assisted living is managing not only several buildings in assisted living. We have Nora Rife, Monty Johnson, Holland DeLay, but they also have to answer any emergency calls for a B building or housing. So to have someone come in for the first time ever to our campus and expect to know all our nurse call systems and medication management, it is very difficult. We are hopefully seeing that flatten down some. The nursing department, we hired nursing DON, a director of nurses, in January, and then in February we hired an assistant director of nurses and a infection preventionist staff development person. So developing the team, that core nurse management was very important to start with, and we're starting to see a influx of applicants, and now we're not just hiring. We just met earlier today, and we have a pretty good solid amount of CNAs and nurses that are going through the hiring process where we should be fully staffed. So we're resorting now to retention. Okay, we have to move down to retention, having a preceptor program, a mentoring program, so that we can retain these employees that we have hired. As far as assisted living, again, one of the questions that I heard was, is everyone leaving just because of wages, I believe the question was, and in assisted living, it's just been a variety of things. We have 2 CNAs that are leaving, and it was for money. One was going to TICO for like $17 an hour, and we can't compete with that. The other one was going to a restaurant, and the restaurant industry has changed their way they're paying as well. But we also are losing Yamilet, who is moving to Puerto Rico and needs to care for her ailing mother. So, you know, it's a variety of reasons, but we're losing good people, and hopefully we have hired good people to replace those. And like I said, just going into retention programs and mentoring programs to try to keep them. Staffing is very crucial to take care of the residents that we have here, and all along I've had the support of Joe and the board that if we weren't having the adequate amount of staffing to hold off on admissions and admitting people into short-term rehab. So there was a time that we were, earlier in the year, that we were limiting the amount of short-term rehab that were coming in. However, every day we go through the staffing with the nursing management team to make sure that we have adequate amount of people to offset how many we are admitting. We did lose 6 residents in the month of June.
So I know our chaplain Eder has continues to be busy and preparation for the deaf and dying process, but we did have 6 losses in June. So we have 6 vacancies on second floor. We have a total of census today of 52. And we also have completed the renovations for Holland Delay, so that increases our vacancies in assisted living. Okay. Any questions so far? Yes.
This off staffing, I think you guys are doing a terrific job, but what I wanted to ask about was, are we going to offer the booster shot for the COVID? They're saying that this Delta strain is covered by the booster shot better than just the 2 shots that we've already received. And I wondered if we're going to offer that immunization here, or if we're going to have to go elsewhere for that. Does anybody have an answer yet?
We don't have an answer yet. We have been working with Guardian Pharmacy, and they have we have a monthly clinic with them for the Moderna. Most of our residents did receive the Pfizer. That's where the booster comes into effect, and that's something that I will be contacting Alan Obringer, the president of Guardian Pharmacy, to see what they can do to offer the booster. If not, CDR Health, which was the original company that the state of Florida utilized to vaccinate many of nursing home and assisted living residents, they still contact me like every other week. They touch base with me, so that's something that Guardian cannot offer. I can reach out to CDR Health for that.
It's a concern, I think, for those of us that want to travel to other parts of the country, because we don't know what we're going into. Most of us have been pretty protected here in our own little world. And I know before I go to North Carolina, I would like to have the booster shot. And it's not so much even for myself.
Hasn't been approved.
Is what I could bring back to the homes. I always had that in my mind that I'm more worried about what I'll cause for problems for people here than so much for myself. And I think it's important to see about it. But thank you for answering my question.
So she is concerned about not receiving the booster, and that would be for the Pfizer vaccination before traveling. And that is something that we have to make sure that it's approved and then offered. So I don't have a date of when that will be, but I will be in contact with the pharmacy or other providers, so when it is approved, we can have a clinic here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Other things would be we're accredited for Joint Commission, and we should have been reaccredited by last June, so we're like a year out because of COVID. Their surveyors are not necessarily from Florida. They send them out to different states, and they will not go into an area where the positivity rate is high. And of course, during all the course of last year, there were many places that they just was not going out anywhere. In the meantime, I have a consultant that has been here for about 4 weeks straight. He's on campus today, and just preparing us and preparing the department heads on managing our status so we can be better prepared for Joint Commission. But in being prepared for Joint Commission, we are setting our bar higher and delivering excellence of care. So it's just something that we will continue to strive in. And last thing that I have on my agenda to speak about is medical directorship. We have a medical director that has been with us on an interim level since last August and continues to be our interim medical director, Dr. Byron Dean. And throughout the year, We have been in communication with Lakeland Regional to see if we can get a solid medical director here. And hopefully we will be hearing in the next 2 weeks or so whether that will fall through. And when that time comes, I will make an announcement if we have a new medical director that's affiliated with Lakeland Regional and possibly affiliation with USF, and bringing in nurse practitioner as well.
We've got, thank you, Maria. We've got Etta and Sam are going to come up, and we know there's a 3 o'clock program in here, so we're going to have to move quickly here.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm going to be brief. God is good and chapel is going well. Thank you for everybody who's been attending worship and helping support with the chapel services. We're beginning to work on the community impact project, so I'm excited about strategic planning. So those of you who believe in the power of prayer, lift up our campus as we go through strategic planning, as we move into the next phases of things that are happening for our campus and some of the questions that are going about the air. Let's just keep that in prayer, and we know we're going to go forward. We've always been a great community, and we'll continue to be that with your support, so thank you.
I concur with Ms. Etta said. I will be brief as well, sweet and simple to the point. I'm going to keep my mask on, so I hope you understand what I'm saying, because I've been sneezing a lot lately, and no, it is not COVID, it's allergies. But just to be brief, because I know you're excited to be coming to the academy at 3 o'clock, so I will not keep you long. Just something brief that just keep your eye out for the Daily Scoop, because everything that we do on campus is always in the Daily Scoop. Now read this, Hunter Herald. So we never want to have you in the midst of things. We do want to say thank you so much for the wonderful attendance for our Father's Day Bash. It was beautiful, the Drain Park, the garden. It was so nice. So thank you for showing love for our fathers. And mothers, I always know you're included in any and everything that we do on this campus. So never question, should I go to that? If you want to come, you are welcome. So please know that for the future. And then we want to also say thank you for your love and your support for our bake sale that we had. We superseded that as well. The goal was 1,000, and we made, I believe, 1114 was raised. So again, thank you all so much, because we can't do none of this without you. We do have some things in the works for August, so we got some tentative dates. Keep your eye out for the Daily Scoop. You will see those things coming up. And for the health center and the AL, we are trying to slowly but surely start doing some things off the campus. So if everything goes well, July the 21st, we'll do Olive Garden for the AL Center. And then for our residents in the health center, we will start bringing a restaurant into them, and that's the bill of their choosing. So if you have anything in mind that you want to come over to the health center to love on us and support us, please know you are welcome with that as well. And I'm going to end it with that. So everyone have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for being patient with us.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Etta.
Any questions for us really quick? I don't want to leave without. Thank you.
Thanks, Etta. Thank you. Just the last topic we had is the dining room update. At 3 o'clock, I know there's a program in here Ray and Bob are going to be doing as part of the academy. I hope you'll stay for that. I'm going down at 3 o'clock to meet with Roger Hyde and look at the dining room and make a determination on whether or not it's ready and safe for us to be able to start utilizing it again. If it is, we feel like it's something we can begin doing again. We've started to invite small groups to come in starting Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week to test run the dining room and make sure that our staff with the new service model are ready to go. Starting on Monday, Dean's goal is to start on Monday with the normal dining program. So that's what his target is this coming Monday, next Monday, to start with the formal dining program. If you want the specifics in detail, go back to the documents that we've been sending out that describes breakfast. Will be a cafeteria style where you would come up and pick out what you want. Lunch will be waiter-waitress style, and then dinner will also be cafeteria, pick out what you want for the dinner cycle. We have some residents that have not been vaccinated, very few, about 5 residents who have not been vaccinated. I've contacted them. What we're asking of them is to socially distance in the dining room. Everyone needs to wear a mask from the minute they enter into the building to when they sit down. When you sit down with your group, if all of you have been vaccinated, you don't have to social distance at your table. You could sit 6 at a 6 top, 4 at a 4 top. But if you haven't been vaccinated, we will seat you in a socially distanced location. So you can still use the dining room, but you're not in proximity to others where you are at risk or you put someone else at risk. So there'll be more details on this after we have this meeting this afternoon and check things out. You may recall that the doors did come in. They came in broken. So now we've got 2 plywood doors that are there. And I just want to make sure that the staff are safe going in and out through those plywood doors, and that the airflow coming from the kitchen into the dining room, we don't have an issue of the exhaust coming from the kitchen into the dining room or from the dining room dust going into the kitchen. So those are the things I want to check. If Roger, Rick, and I don't feel that it's safe to set up the way it's set up right now with these plywood doors, we'll announce that we won't be opening the dining room. Our hope is that we can open it with these temporary doors. That's what our goal is. But we want to make sure that the doors are safe for staff to be going in and out of, and that there's not an airflow issue that is going to move bacteria back and forth and dust back and forth through the dining room. So with that, I'm going to close out. I think good question, Sam. Sam's asking, yes, you do have to make a reservation. We'll have the reservation book set up, or you can call. And you can schedule for the week. You can say, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll be here for lunch. Thursday, Friday, I'll be here for dinner. The reason, and there was a description that Dean responded to a resident answering why. It's because we have 3 meals required in assisted living, 3 meals are required in healthcare. They're able to come down, some of them from healthcare, and certainly from assisted living. They're able to come down and utilize the dining room. So we just have to know our numbers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And also we have to make sure that if people are making reservations that haven't been vaccinated, that we can make the adjustment to seat them at a table where there's social distancing. Yeah. Well, the thing, good question. Sherry's asking, can we ask them if they've been vaccinated? We can for healthcare safety issues, but because we offered the vaccines here, we have a document of all the residents that have been vaccinated here, and then we've asked folks that got vaccinated elsewhere to provide us with a copy of their vaccine card so we know. So it's 5 residents, and I've contacted them individually. They know they have access, but they have to wear their mask and they have to sit in a socially distanced manner. But for those that have been vaccinated, you can sit with your friends at a table. You don't have to keep the mask on at the table. You've been vaccinated and you're in a safe position. The employees all have to maintain masks. We've got 51% of our employees have been vaccinated. So all employees in the buildings have to wear masks. We were talking before the meeting started, the safest thing for you to continue to do is to wear the mask in the buildings. Even though you've been vaccinated, you can still catch this virus. And if you have some type of a immunosuppressive issue, it could still have an impact on you that's significant. So with that, thanks. So with that, thank you for coming. Oh, okay, we got one more question.
Memorial Garden campaign.
Yeah.
I got this form, but it doesn't say who to send it to. I can't find out who to send it to.
Oh, okay, for the Memorial Garden, Sam? Yes. That would be to me, and that's, you betcha.
Okay, that's all I want.
All right, thanks. Thank you all. Have a good day. Hey.